Spiritual awakening doesn't ignite your purpose, it immolates it. The fervent ambitions, the compelling drive, the meticulously planned goals that once blazed within your core transmute into an unnerving silence. You were promised a vibrant existence, infused with vitality through enlightenment and truth, but instead, you find yourself amidst the desolate ruins of your former passions, enveloped in an unsettling quietude. Rest assured, you are neither indolent nor defective. You are simply experiencing the aftermath of piercing through the grand illusion. Having glimpsed behind the curtain, the mundane world now seems insufficient to warrant pursuit. This is not failure, but a profound initiation. Your intrinsic spark has not been extinguished. Rather, you have transcended a flame that was never truly yours. The pertinent question is not how to rekindle your lost motivation, but why its disappearance was a necessary precursor. Thoth, the venerable guardian of sacred wisdom, proclaimed, "The silence that follows awakening is not a void, but a fertile womb. Within it gestates something previously unimaginable." For years you navigated life fueled by an externally imposed flame, bequeathed to you like a theatrical script, inherited like a concealing mask. From the initial accolades in school to the relentless expectations of adulthood, motivation became synonymous with survival. Goals were pursued not for the nourishment of the soul, but for the attainment of praise, security, or a coveted position at the table. This pursuit was christened as drive and discipline. But beneath the veneer of relentless activity lurked a profound fear, the dread of being marginalized, deemed inadequate, or fading into insignificance. Initially, this strategy yielded apparent success. The ego's engine roared with power and velocity, propelling you forward. It accomplished tasks, ascended hierarchies, accumulated titles, and ensured a perpetually busy and productive existence, continually striving for validation. However, the advent of awakening causes this engine to falter. The structures that once defined your identity begin to crumble. Goals lose their allure, urgency dissipates, and the once unyielding flame gradually fades, not in a dramatic conflagration, but in an almost imperceptible decline. What you perceived as purpose is revealed to be mere performance. As the stage collapses, so too does the actor. This collapse feels akin to death, for in a profound sense it is. The ego's narrative, the meticulously crafted story of who you believed yourself to be, your supposed aspirations, and the metrics by which you gauged your worth, begins to unravel. Consequently, motivation wanes, not due to deficiency, but because its underlying fuel source was fundamentally artificial. One cannot sustain the pursuit of goals conceived by a now obsolete facet of oneself. This juncture often triggers panic in seekers. The mind shrieks, "I am losing myself." However, Thoth would counsel, you are not losing yourself. You are shedding what was never authentically you. The diminution of motivation is not regression, but resistance to reverting to a life that was perpetually misaligned with your true essence. Within the ensuing silence, a deeper aspect of yourself yearns to emerge, yet it cannot coexist with the cacophony of your former identity. The sacred pause you are currently experiencing is not apathy, but alchemy. You are not complete, but dissolving. And yet a crucial element is often omitted from conventional narratives. This phase of the journey lacks glamour and is unlikely to gain widespread acclaim. There are no expeditious routes or affirmations to circumvent it. This awakening is not of the empowering variety. It induces profound humility, leaving you no recourse but to sit amidst the ashes of your past fire, patiently awaiting the reemergence of something genuine. Some truths are too profound and raw to be fully elucidated within this space. To delve deeper into these unutterable wisdoms, join our exclusive Resonance Collective. There we share insights beyond the scope of public discourse. For a limited time, new members will also receive a guided meditation crafted to unlock dormant potential, accessible via the link below. Because the truth is, this stillness you're in isn't the end. It's a recalibration, a return to your authentic origins. The ego thrived on adrenaline and accolades, but the soul operates according to a different paradigm. It eschews haste and possessiveness, embracing patience and attentive listening. It gently beckons, initiating a rewiring process that transcends ambition, prioritizing alignment. You begin to comprehend that the path ahead will not be about proving your worth, but about living in unwavering integrity with an ancient truth residing within you, a truth that requires no external amplification to be heard. No one cautions you about the void that follows awakening. You anticipate illumination, clarity, and a definitive sense of purpose. But instead, you awaken into a silence that lacks tranquility and feels haunting. The drive that once propelled you is replaced by an unsettling stillness. You sense your old self disintegrating, yet nothing tangible emerges to fill the void. You exist in an indeterminate space between narratives, and this in-betweenness feels like an indefinable loss. This is the phase that is rarely romanticized, the phase devoid of the outward trappings of enlightenment, lacking the sensation of bliss, and offering no readily available solutions. It represents the aftershock, the moment following the lifting of the veil, when the world abruptly feels too subdued, contrived, and devoid of substance to be taken seriously. You observe the roles people play and question how you ever participated in them. You witness others chasing aspirations that once resonated with you: wealth, recognition, ambition, and instead of envy, you experience a strange detachment, akin to watching actors perform on a stage from which you have been irrevocably excluded. Then the questions begin to reverberate. What is my purpose? What truly matters now? Why does everything feel so devoid of meaning after purportedly discovering the truth? This is the inherent paradox. You anticipated awakening to ignite your spirit, but instead, it extinguished everything you previously believed. Knowing, you assumed, would invariably lead to doing, but instead it initially necessitates undoing. Thoth designates this the sacred silence, not as mere emptiness, but as a fertile womb teeming with unseen transformative potential. The mind will invariably panic within this space, conditioned as it is to interpret stillness as peril. You have been trained to equate activity with inherent worth. Small wonder, then, that this pause feels akin to failure. Yet, it is not failure, but the deconstruction of a false edifice. Rebuilding cannot commence until the existing foundation has been completely cleared. This clearing process, characterized by silence, pain, and invisibility, constitutes the real work. Outwardly, you may appear unchanged, continuing to dress, interact, and function in the world, but inwardly you are in a state of free fall, often unnoticed by those around you. This contributes to the disorientation. You are undergoing a spiritual death within a culture that lacks the lexicon, rituals, or guidance to navigate it, offering instead only productivity metrics and self-help platitudes urging you to get back on track. But the track no longer exists, and that is precisely the point. In this liminal space, time expands. You begin to question everything, not out of fear, but out of sheer exhaustion. You have seen too much to revert to the past and not enough to confidently stride forward. You inhabit the waiting room of your next iteration, and this space is sacred, even if it feels unbearable. Thoth reminds us that what you are experiencing is not apathy, but absence, the absence of false motivation, contrived purpose, and illusory identity. The system you formerly operated on is offline. You are not lazy. You are in a state of profound transition. Within this void, your senses begin to undergo a metamorphosis. What once stirred excitement now feels jarring. What once motivated you now feels hollow. The chase no longer holds appeal, and performance ceases to compel. You yearn for something quieter, something authentic, though its precise nature remains elusive. This is acceptable. The void does not demand immediate resolution, but rather implores you to cease seeking answers in the very places that caused your fragmentation. Remain present, breathe deeply, and allow yourself to grieve the aspects of yourself that no longer align with your evolving essence. You are not being punished, but purified. The silence does not mock you, but cradles you. You have not lost your way. You have simply ventured beyond the confines of the map. Soon, a stirring will occur within the darkness, not as a commanding directive or a visual manifestation of future success, but as a gentle pulse. This pulse will not demand, it will invite. When it arises, you will instinctively recognize the distinction. You were indoctrinated to believe that ambition was sacrosanct, that those who rose earliest, worked the most diligently, and sacrificed the most were inherently deserving of success. You were taught to equate exhaustion with unwavering dedication and burnout with valor. Somewhere along the way, stillness became suspect. Rest was misconstrued as indolence. Slowness was equated with weakness, and any moment not filled with tangible progress was deemed a wasted opportunity. You did not merely inherit this mindset, you assimilated it, rendering it an integral part of your reflexive behavior. the invisible metrics by which you evaluated your own worth. Are you producing? Are you improving? Are you doing enough? Now, in the aftermath of awakening, these metrics begin to dissolve. You experience a void of urgency, a dearth of intrinsic spark, and a lack of clearly defined goals. The underlying fear intensifies not that the world is inherently flawed, but that something is fundamentally wrong with you. The absence of motivation leads you to assume that you are somehow broken, that you have failed in your own awakening. This is where the deception lies deepest. The drive you once possessed did not originate from your soul, but was meticulously programmed into your psyche, a feedback loop, meticulously constructed by systems that require your constant striving, performance, and forgetting of the essence of simple being. Thoth elucidates that what we commonly refer to as ambition often serves as an echo of unhealed fear. For many, the relentless pursuit of achievement is a compensatory mechanism for the pervasive terror of stillness. To cease activity is to feel, to decelerate is to hear the silence, and within that silence resides everything that society has taught us to evade: grief, emptiness, existential unease. Consequently, we remain perpetually occupied, relentlessly chasing ephemeral goals in the futile hope of drowning out the quiet ache we never learned to confront. However, awakening forces this ache to the surface. It strips away the noise, the predetermined roles, the scripted narratives, leaving you standing alone in a silence that cannot be outsourced, medicated, or outrun. Within this silence, drive begins to appear alien, not noble or empowering, but merely discordant. You begin to discern that much of what you previously labeled purpose was, in reality, internalized pressure, a relentless demand for performance. Thoth refers to this as the sacred reversal, anti-odroia, when something, taken to its extreme, transmutes into its opposite. Drive transforms into inertia. Hustle becomes stillness, and the fire burns out, not from deficiency, but from overuse and futility. This reversal is not a malfunction, but a necessary recalibration. The soul cannot communicate at the same decibel level as the ego. It does not shout, it hums. Its movement is governed by resonance, not deadlines or dopamine surges. When you are in alignment with your soul's purpose, you do not require external motivation, but rather intrinsic meaning. And unlike achievement, meaning does not always elicit applause. Often it manifests in whispers, in quiet acts that go unobserved, in moments that may appear inconsequential, but resonate with profound truth. Therefore, if you have experienced a loss of drive, introspectively examine what was driving you before. Was it love or fear, alignment or performance, truth or the pursuit of approval? Refrain from hastily replacing the old fire or attempting to ignite a new one. Allow the ashes to settle and the dust to clear. Beneath the burned-out engine lies something dormant, patiently awaiting its emergence, not as a fleeting sprint, but as a deliberate, sacred movement. You will likely feel an urge to revert to the familiar track, mistaking old habits for genuine energy. However, Thoth cautions that the old track was a treadmill, and the perceived urgency was merely an addiction. The path ahead will not involve doing more, but rather doing differently, originating from a place of stillness and profound truth. A moment arrives shortly after the unraveling commences, when the world loses its familiar solidity. You traverse familiar locales and utter familiar words, but nothing quite fits, as if you were wearing ill-fitting garments or observing yourself from a detached perspective. Initially, this manifests as a subtle disconnection, a sense of weightlessness, but it gradually intensifies. You cease to recognize your own desires. The goals that once propelled you forward now leave you unmoved, yet nothing new has emerged to supplant them. This marks the beginning of a descent not into chaos but into quietude, not into madness but into soul. This is the realm that Thoth designates the holy Darka descent, not into failure, but into the underworld of the psyche, where the ego unravels and all that was once familiar perishes. This process is indispensable. The old scaffolding cannot be integrated into the new foundation. The persona, the meticulously constructed identity you presented to the world, must die before the authentic self can rise. However, even symbolic death rarely evokes feelings of liberation. It more closely resembles collapse. This is not clinical depression, though it may share certain symptomatic similarities. It is something older, something sacred. Depression numbs and detaches. while this descent awakens something raw and primal. You are not disengaged. You are hyper-aware of the degree to which your life was constructed upon avoidance, of the roles you performed to gain acceptance, and of the dreams you inherited rather than consciously chose. Now, stripped of all distractions, you are confronted with the underlying reality. Silence, but not the soothing kind, the confrontational kind. Our culture lacks patience for this stage. It medicates it, pathologizes it, and labels it as dysfunction. However, Thoth would argue that this descent is not a breakdown, but an initiation, a dismantling of what was never authentically real, thereby enabling something authentic to begin to take form. The ego collapses in a dramatic fashion, while the soul emerges in quietude. You will not discover it by forcing clarity, but by surrendering to a state of not knowing. This is where time decelerates, days blur, and energy fluctuates erratically or vanishes altogether. The old self, the one capable of persevering, hustling relentlessly, and grinding without respite, is now obsolete. In its absence, you feel exposed and vulnerable, like a seed in the soil, broken open before roots have taken hold. You yearn to grow, to discern direction, yet nothing responds. This constitutes the test. Can you remain within the soil long enough to trust that growth is occurring even in the absence of tangible evidence? The descent into soul is not a poetic experience. It is gritty, silent, and often terrifying. It strips you of all external validation, forcing you to confront the question, who am I without performance, without praise, without purpose? The only response is a whispered directive. Wait, wait, not in a passive sense, but in a state of sacred stillness. Stillness becomes the space where truth begins to reassemble itself. Within this descent, you do not discover answers. You become the question. Each layer that peels away reveals another lie you once inhabited, and each silence conceals a potential doorway. Yet, no map can guide you through this terrain. Only trust, not blind faith, but a deeper conviction that life is not punishing you but preparing you, that nothing is lacking, and that your soul continues to communicate even if its voice is currently confined to silence. Thoth elucidates that this stage is not a punishment for awakening, but the necessary price of achieving wholeness. You cannot bypass it, fast forward through it, or circumvent it. You can only descend, and the deeper you descend, the more space you create for something truly authentic to rise. This is the phase where seemingly nothing occurs, or at least, that is how it appears. No grand revelations, no divine downloads, just silence, protracted periods of quietude, uncertainty, and stillness that seem to stretch endlessly. In the aftermath of the descent into soul, after the collapse of the old identity, there is no immediate resurrection or rapid ascent from the ashes. There is only this, the pause, and it is maddening because you have been conditioned to equate value with motion, progress, and tangible evidence. Now you are living within the chrysalis, and the chrysalis does not perform. Every facet of your being may clamor for escape, to revert to doing, planning, achieving anything to outrun this inertia. But the soul operates according to a different temporal framework, unbound by urgency or predetermined outcomes. It prioritizes incubation over acceleration. You are not malfunctioning, nor are you failing. You are undergoing a transformation that is invisible on the surface, yet monumental beneath it. Thoth reminds us that the caterpillar does not metamorphose into a butterfly by simply adding wings. It undergoes a complete dissolution, becoming unrecognizable before regaining wholeness. Within the chrysalis, it is neither what it once was nor what it will ultimately become. It is a formless, undefined goo that is you right now, and it explains why everything feels so strange, empty, and disjointed. You have shed the old structure, but the new form has yet to emerge. You are in a state of becoming, even as you feel as though you are disappearing. This space is sacred, yet it evokes no sense of security because you possess no script to follow or model to emulate. The external world continues its relentless spin with its goals, deadlines, and meticulously curated highlight reels, while you are asked to wait, to remain soft, to remain silent, and to remain surrendered. This demands a form of courage that few will ever truly comprehend, a courage not of outward battle but of inward stillness, not avoidance of the world but a conscious choice to engage with it from a place of profound authenticity. You may feel pressured to justify this season to others, to make it appear as though you are still productive and making progress. However, the soul does not justify itself. It does not compete for validation. It recognizes that this period of quietude is not merely a pause in your life, but the foundational bedrock upon which your authentic life will be built. You are not behind. You are beneath the surface, beneath the noise, beneath the illusion. And down here, something ancient is taking root within you. It will not announce itself with resounding clarity or unwavering confidence. It will not communicate in the language of objectives or strategic plans. It will arrive as a gentle tug, a subtle but persistent hum within your core, communicating not this, but something else. When that signal arises, you will instinctively discern the distinction. You were taught that ambition was a virtue, that those who awoke the earliest, toiled the hardest, and sacrificed the most were inherently deserving of success. These tenets are now being challenged. If you find yourself here, suspended in this liminal state, feeling unmotivated, uninspired, and uncertain, know this: you are precisely where you need to be. You are not stagnant, you are undergoing a profound transformation. When the shift begins, it will not be accompanied by fireworks or a surge of euphoric energy signaling your triumphant return. It will manifest as a whisper, a subtle inward pull, a faint pulse that does not coerce, but gently entices. After prolonged silence, it is easy to overlook this subtle signal. You have become accustomed to the stillness and have ceased actively seeking direction because direction ceased arriving in the ways it once did. But now something stirs, not overtly or conspicuously, but undeniably. Initially, you may not even recognize it as movement. It bears no resemblance to prior experiences of motivation or drive. Instead, it feels like resonance of truth humming just beneath the surface, not demanding speed but imploring sincerity. There is no sense of urgency or pressure to compensate for perceived lost time, merely a quiet knowing that it is time to begin anew, but originating from an entirely different vantage point. Thoth refers to this as the sacred return, not a return to the familiar, but a return to the authentic self. The self that was submerged beneath years of conditioning, imposed roles, and external expectations. This self does not require a formal mission statement, nor does it crave validation or applause. It simply requires honoring, and you honor it not by forcing clarity, but by following the subtle inward pull toward what feels authentic, simple, and vibrantly alive. This nascent movement will not resemble your past experiences. It will not be fueled by fear or a compulsion to prove your worth. You will not be chasing after illusory success or meticulously ticking off boxes on a predetermined list. Rather, you will be responding, listening, and following threads of energy that defy logical explanation, yet resonate deeply with your soul. This is where many individuals become confused because from an external perspective, it may appear that you are disengaging, perhaps even withdrawing from the world. However, inwardly, everything is being renewed. You are not striving harder, you are striving truer. You are not speaking louder, you are speaking with greater clarity. You are not attempting to embody someone else. You are allowing yourself to simply be, and in that state of being, creation is rekindled not as a demand, but as a desire, a natural inclination to express what you now know in your bones, not merely in your mind. You move because the alternative would be a form of betrayal, and you act not because you are obligated to, but because something within you is finally prepared. This constitutes the genuine return of motivation, not the borrowed, performative kind, but the kind that is intrinsically born from the soul. It is characterized by quietude, rootedness, and an imperviousness to burnout, as it is not driven by a need to be seen. It is not a theatrical production or a calculated comeback. It is a seamless continuation of something ancient that has been patiently awaiting its opportunity to emerge within you. You may find yourself engaging in creative endeavors again, writing, speaking, building, helping, not because you are compelled to, but because you cannot not. The self does not strive, it flows. When you operate from this elevated state, your energy no longer dissipates, it replenishes. You are not depleted by your actions, you are nourished by them. You are not chasing alignment, you are embodying it. Rebirth, as Thoth reminds us, is not a blaze. It is a candle kindled in the darkness. It is subtle, sacred, and entirely sovereign. It does not demand your attention, but patiently awaits your consent. When you offer it, everything begins to move again, not from pressure, but from a profound sense of peace. The old fire was characterized by drama, flaring in response to praise, surging when you felt threatened, and dimming when you were not validated. It was a fire of reaction aflame that subsisted on recognition, ambition, and anxiety. It burned intensely and quickly, ultimately leading to burnout. You mistook it for purpose because it kept you in constant motion, but in retrospect it was fundamentally unstable, flickering with every gust of approval or disappointment. When awakening extinguished that fire, it felt akin to death. However, you are now beginning to comprehend that it created space for a flame that cannot be extinguished, as it originates not from the external world but from within. This new fire is quieter and more enduring. It does not surge with applause or diminish under pressure. It resides deeper, beyond the realm of thought, mood, and the capricious games of self-worth. It does not pose the question, "What must I do to be enough?" Instead, it inquires, "What is authentically real within me now?" The answer is not loud, but steady and calm. It does not demand attention because it has no need to be noticed. It simply burns gently, consistently, and unapologetically. This marks the initiation of living from essence rather than effort. You are no longer performing for the sake of being seen, but expressing because you have remembered your true identity. This remembrance does not always manifest as clarity in the form of specific goals or 5-year plans. At times, it simply alters how you show up in the world, the way you communicate, the way you listen, and the way you exist, even when unobserved. There is no longer a compulsion to hustle for meaning. You do not need to seek out your purpose as if it were a hidden object buried beneath years of perceived failure. You begin to understand that purpose is not something you chase, but something you embody, and it unfolds naturally when you live from that steady internal flame. Thoth elucidates that true power is not characterized by loudness or forcefulness, but by an unwavering presence, a rootedness that cannot be swayed by fleeting trends, performance metrics, or external validation. A devotion to what is true, even when it defies logic or conventional wisdom. You may begin to engage in activities that appear small or insignificant, reading with a new level of attentiveness, creating without the anticipation of an audience, walking without a predetermined destination, and speaking from a place of stillness. These are not symptoms of apathy, but rather indicators of a return to the authentic self, a return to your inherent rhythm, and a return to the inner intelligence that never required fixing, only an opportunity to breathe freely. While others may struggle to comprehend this new iteration of yourself, lamenting the perceived loss of drive, passion, or ambition, you will possess the inner knowing that is beyond their understanding. You are now moving from a place of wholeness, not from a place of deficiency. You are building not to prove your worth, but to honor your intrinsic value. And you are resting not because you have earned it, but because it is an essential component of your natural rhythm. You are no longer living a life of reaction, you are living a life of resonance, and that resonance will guide you toward what is authentically yours. The path may not always be obvious, nor will it always be easy, but it will invariably feel aligned, like returning home. Thoth reminds us that the flame of the soul is not for exhibition, but for truth. It is not intended to illuminate a stage, but to illuminate the path within. You are no longer attempting to impress the external world. You are listening attentively to the world within yourself. This fundamental shift transforms everything. When you begin to live from the authentic self, something subtle yet profound occurs. Life ceases to feel like a stage upon which you must perform or a ladder you are compelled to ascend. Instead, it begins to resemble a rhythm, a unique, steadily unfolding movement that is not a test or a burdensome task, but a deepening and evolving journey that is exclusively yours. You relinquish the question, "What should I be doing?" and instead attune yourself to what feels quietly and intrinsically true. The authentic self does not rush, demand, or attempt to drown out the external noise. It patiently waits. And when you finally grant it space, it communicates not in the form of directives, but in the form of pulses, gentle pulls, and sacred nudges, the kind of inner knowing that defies rational explanation, yet cannot be ignored. You may find your daily routines undergoing a transformation, not in ways that are overtly dramatic, but in ways that are profoundly authentic. You are no longer awakening with anxiety, forcing adherence to plans that no longer resonate, or acquiescing to demands that leave you feeling depleted. Your life begins to reorient itself, not around productivity quotas, but around presence. Not around external validation, but around what resonates deeply within your chest. This is not about becoming someone new, it is about finally allowing who you have always been to lead. This journey is not without its challenges, as the external world will inevitably attempt to pull you back into its familiar pace, its incessant noise, its relentless urgency, and its persistent pressure to prove your worth. But something within you has been irrevocably altered. You can now sense, both viscerally and intuitively, when you are out of alignment, not merely as an abstract concept, but as a tangible sensation in your body, your nervous system, and your breath. Misalignment manifests as static, while resonance feels like peace, and gradually you begin to prioritize peace more consistently, not as a means of escapism, but as an internal compass. Thoth teaches that the authentic self is not discovered through incessant striving, but through a process of stripping away all that is inauthentic. It does not appear as a goal achieved, but as a presence remembered. It has always been there, concealed beneath the layers of ego, conditioning, and cultural noise. Now, in the quiet aftermath of your awakening, it has space to breathe, space to guide, and space to pulse through your life like a gentle current, drawing you not toward mere achievement, but toward profound authenticity. You are no longer interested in chasing after transient goals. You are interested in cultivating lasting value, building sustainable foundations, and engaging in activities that take root and flourish. You comprehend that genuine creation does not stem from adrenaline, but from alignment, and alignment is not always glamorous, nor does it always equate to conventional success. However, it invariably feels like integrity. It feels like coming home to yourself. This is where the true return commences, not a return to the old paradigm, but a return to a deeper level of participation in life. One where you no longer seek external permission to be who you are, and where your inner authority speaks with a clarity that transcends the expectations of the external world. You are no longer attempting to conform to societal norms. You are finally allowing life to mold itself around what is authentically real within you, and in that transformational shift, the authentic self does not merely awaken, it assumes its rightful place as your guide. A pivotal point arrives in this journey when the stillness you once dreaded becomes the very anchor that sustains you. It no longer feels like waiting, but like being not passive or aimless, but rooted, present, and honest. The fire that once propelled you was often frantic and erratic, fueled by scarcity and a relentless sense of urgency. But what you now carry within you is fundamentally different. It does not flare up and burn out. It glows steadily and humbly, remaining unshakable. You begin to perceive a profound truth that was previously obscured. The stillness was never a void, but the threshold of your authentic life commencing. You no longer move because you are striving to catch up to some elusive benchmark. Instead, you move because something within you is already in motion, and you are finally in harmony with it. This movement is not propelled by guilt, rigid timelines, or an invisible scoreboard. It is pulled by meaning, and meaning, you have discovered, does not reside in the future. It resides in how you show up in the present moment, in the quality of your attention, in the sincerity of your yes, and in the courage of your no. You have ceased chasing after the idealized version of yourself that you were conditioned to become. You have relinquished the question of what the world demands of you, and have instead begun to inquire as to what truth seeks to express itself through you. This subtle shift is a catalyst for transformation. The world may still demand your unwavering hustle, your ceaseless output, and your relentless participation in its competitive race. But you have consciously stepped off the track, not in a spirit of defiance, but in a spirit of deep devotion. You are not attempting to escape life. You are seeking to engage with it while preserving the integrity of your soul. You begin to perceive a deeper intelligence guiding your choices, an intelligence that is not always rational or linear, but is invariably unmistakable. You release yourself from obligations that no longer resonate with your authentic frequency, even if they once held a certain allure. You cease justifying your need for space, silence, and softness. You begin to live as though your inner world holds more significance than the world's reaction to it, and in doing so, you experience something extraordinary. You feel free not with a loud, revolutionary, or attention-seeking freedom, but with a quiet, sovereign, and embodied freedom. The kind that needs no external validation to be real. The kind that empowers you to live lightly, create slowly, and communicate gently. You no longer feel the need to convince anyone or to seek universal understanding. The truth you now carry within you requires no defense. It simply requires living. This is the inherent paradox of awakening. You initially believe it will lead to augmentation, but it ultimately results in diminishment. However, it is only a diminishment of what was never authentically you. What remains is the part of you that is unshakable, incorruptible, and eternally yours. It is steady, sacred, and profoundly personal. And from this vantage point, external motivation becomes largely irrelevant. Resonance, alignment, and integrity take its place, not as lofty ideals, but as the invisible scaffolding upon which every action is built. Your life ceases to be a performance. It becomes a prayer, a quiet offering to something far deeper than mere desire. The soul does not hustle, it harmonizes. And now, so do you. If you have reached this point and continue to believe that motivation is somehow lacking, I urge you to reconsider. What you have lost is the noise, and what you have gained is the signal, the very signal you were always intended to follow. Not because it is clamorous, but because it is true. So, if any of this resonates with you, remember you're not alone. The journey after spiritual awakening can feel disorienting, even desolate, as the old structures of our lives crumble. But within that silence, within that perceived void, lies incredible potential. It's an invitation to shed what isn't authentically you and discover a deeper sense of purpose that comes from alignment, integrity, and resonance. It's about moving away from external validation and embracing the quiet whispers of your own soul. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you experienced a similar loss of motivation after a spiritual awakening? What helped you navigate that transition? Leave a comment below, ask a question, or just join the discussion. I'm always interested in hearing your unique perspectives and experiences. And if you found this video helpful and want to explore similar themes further, make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss out on future explorations of these profound topics, and we can continue this journey together. Thanks so much for watching.